All right.
Here we go.
All right. Well, let's top into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Merge Feast. I am Blake with Logan and Brandon. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Going on.
Brandon, what'd you think of this week?
I loved this episode. The biggest standout for me was we got some players in this game.
Mm.
So this tribal could have gone so many different ways. I was counting it out, and there's 11 players left in this episode, and 6 names came up to potentially be voted out tonight. So there's a lot of different people trying to do a lot of different things. There's not necessarily a majority alliance. There's a lot of little alliances and a lot of almost voting blocks that are happening. And I'm really excited for the next few episodes with how everything was kind of going down tonight.
Yeah, I don't know if I could have said it better myself. I think the level of gameplay that we're seeing this season has been out of the norm from what we'd seen previously, and it is a blast to watch. And being able to try and think about numbers and where it could go and what could happen, and oh, this person's now turning on this person, or just everything to do with it is I'm loving it. So definitely excited to dive into it. I definitely think there was some disappointing moments in this episode, but not necessarily anything that ruined it for me by any means. But it definitely a good one.
No, I absolutely agree. And I guess we can get specific on some of this. I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the episode. But what was kind of stand out to me was even though Sierra got voted out, she was somebody who I was considering or I would consider being like a strong player in the game. And for her to seem like she has a grasp of to what's going on, and she's not out there saying like, well, nobody's talking to me, I have no idea. Like, she's actively a part of all of these conversations, and they were still able to blindside her and have that many people all work together, I and end up voting the exact same way. I thought was, I mean, the level of gameplay is definitely been turned up a notch.
Yeah, I I don't know if we've seen this level of gameplay since the new era.
Yeah, and I think we've hit on it recently, but I wonder if part of that lately is just because it's only been one tribe that's really had to play the game until the merge, and then you're kind of
Mhm.
starting from then. I don't know though. It'd be
I,
interesting to see what other people think.
I think that's a huge aspect of it is that these players are warm. Like they've kind of already been in the trenches and kind of have a game plan ready if kind of what they want to happen. Um, but I also think it's like this is season 47 and this is the 7th season of the new era. So I think these players have a pretty good grasp of what to expect in the game. I know that Survivor is going to throw new twists at them all the time, but I think they have a good idea of like when things should happen or what kind of advantages to look out for in just all the different elements of Survivor. But I think we have the best group of players of the new era. I know that we've had in the past just like standout players or that player is really good or we've really liked a lot of the casts that we've covered, but I think this is out of everybody left, just a really strong group of people. And I honestly have no idea who's going to win this game. And I love that. I feel
Mm.
like last season and the season before, we kind of had it narrowed down to a few people. And then in season 45, we kind of had it pegged at the merge that one of those Reba players was going to come out victorious. And here, I genuinely don't know. And that's just great for this season.
For sure.
Tonight, honestly, like opened my eyes to Rachel a little bit. Like I wasn't really getting or understanding where like Caroline was coming from when she's like, I think Rachel's the best player in this game and I want to get her out. And after what I saw tonight, I'm like, I think Rachel might be the best player in this game and they need to get her out.
Yeah, I definitely have like questions in with Tribal and why she played her shot in the dark, and want to talk through some of that later.
Let's talk about it now.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
just go. Let's get into it. Because I actually like, and I got validated on Twitter because I saw some people say the same thing. Obviously, Rachel had an idol this episode, right? During the auction, we can get to that. I think she had kind of an idea of what was going to happen at Tribal, so she pulls out her shot in the dark and kind of does a temperature check with the tribe and pulls out her shot in the dark, get a reaction of what they are thinking, and depending on how they reacted is she also going to play her idol on top of that? And I think she played her shot in the dark, got the reaction of, okay, I think I'm good, and just called it good there.
Would she be able to play her idol if she, because the shot in the dark took the place of her vote, so she didn't technically vote. So is she able to play her idol?
I mean, I think you're allowed to do anything before the votes are read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense then. It was just kind of like in my initial thought, because whenever she played it, she went back and sat down, and you could clearly tell that she was looking at certain people to
Yeah.
almost see their reactions. Like, okay, we're like, where are we standing? And so that side made sense, but yeah, definitely a smart play then.
And she comes out clean without anybody knowing about her idol.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And that was my initial thought was, what are you doing when you have an idol? You could guarantee your safety. And then I was like, wait a second, she could do both and just gauge if people are super disappointed or relieved or whatever. And it's like, okay, that might have been smarter than I initially gave it credit for. But I almost wonder too if you want to have that further in the game, because now she can't play a shot in the dark again, right?
But I think, yeah, she's done with that. But I think she's kind of opened up the shot in the dark, because I think we would kind of all agree that the shot in the dark's not that great. The odds are obviously not good. It's a 1 in 6 shot of being safe.
That's
So
actually a really good point.
Literally the roll of the dice. So maybe don't use it in, man, I hope that this pays off and I'm safe tonight, but use it just to gauge the rest of the tribe to kind of see where you're at. Like,
That's a really good point. Man.
she's smart.
Yeah,
Very
could potentially
smart.
that could potentially change how things are played from here on out.
Yeah.
Whether or not everybody else picks up on that or if that'll be for future seasons, but
I think
that's a really good point.
I will not be surprised next week if Caroline just calls it out in a confessional. It's like, I think Rachel did this and I think she has something else up her sleeve, because she's just been like, she's been on Rachel. She's been on everything. And I wouldn't be surprised if she caught that, because when I really know if it was significant, but when Rachel was digging in her bag, Caroline was looking down at her. So be curious if there's, something there. But Rachel's been gunning for her a little bit. I mean, Caroline's been gunning for Rachel a little bit. So I don't know if Rachel's gonna win, because she has people looking at her.
Yeah.
And her name came up tonight, obviously.
How in the world did she get that idol out of the tarp with everybody sitting there?
I have no idea. That was impressive.
It had to have been like just a few threads
Yeah.
sewn in.
But still, it almost looked like she had to cut the tarp open. But either way, like, what a brilliant idea by Survivor. Like, okay, let's put this in plain sight where you have to destroy something that's incredibly valuable to you right now. Not completely destroy it, but still.
Yeah.
Like, man, what an awesome spot.
What'd you guys think of, because the auction came back.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you guys think of this version of the auction, because it was pretty much the same as the season 45 auction with like a little bit of a twist in there. And
Mhm.
I felt like
What was the twist?
it's still the old school eat some grubs, like, you can
Oh.
put in 200 for this,
Yeah.
kind of forcing people to put money on the line. And because the problem with the season 45 auction was, and still it was a little bit of a problem with this one, was player with the most money remaining at the end loses their vote. So people were spending, $1,200 on a milkshake or $600 on mac and cheese, right? And kind of like taking the wind out of it a little bit.
Right.
So I liked that, one time Jeff was like, $60 for chips. First one to say it gets it. And kind of making people hold their money a little bit, or, you're going to put $200 on the line for this reward. And then like Rachel didn't buy that advantage, she just happened to get the item that had an advantage inside of it.
Well, and there was the two or three situations where they had the cashback program.
Where they gave money back. Yep.
Yeah, so that was it was still I still think they could make that version of the auction better with a couple different ideas, but
It's just not. It doesn't.
All
I
they
don't know.
need to do, in my opinion, and maybe this like goes against the whole game, but hey, the auction is recreational. It's for fun. Just turn off for a second. Let's have fun. Nobody loses their vote. Nobody gets an advantage. Like, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
That to me is like, just do that. Because I enjoy the auction for what it is. Like, I like to see them bid on stupid things or bid on mystery things and get fish guts or whatever random terrible thing. And I love those reactions rather than like, oh, Sam lost his vote because somebody else had more money than him and outbid him.
And that was my biggest complaint with the way they do the auction. I definitely think the few changes that they did were good, but it's not much of an auction. As soon as it just goes down the line of who has the next highest amount of money, and it's just going. So I like your idea of saying, hey, this is completely like turn off from the game, have some fun. And I think that could bring it back to an actual auction style of bidding back and forth and doing some of that. And I think that I like that idea a lot.
Or like maybe not even fully like there's nothing at stake here, but just eliminate the whole player with most money loses their vote. But like this, this item could have an advantage or this item could have a disadvantage where you bought it and you lost your vote.
Yeah.
Or like, don't make it so like clear cut, like what the stakes are, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing I think if they, and this is just a couple subtle changes, but make the portions way smaller and then increase the amount of items. So instead of what they say, 10 to 15, is that what it was? Make it 15 to 20 or 20 to 25, but it's like there's a little bowl of potato chips. So then it's almost like you want to save your money for things further down the line, but you don't know if it's going to be 20 or 25, but you do know you've got quite a few more options to eat even more.
Yeah.
But I do think it was a much better experience than 2 seasons ago when they brought it back.
Agreed. And can we talk about Andy for a second? Like, come on, man.
Are we surprised though?
I'm not, but like, I'm like, dude, you're watching him walk around and I'm like, look around. Like, just turn your head and your eyes and look. You're just like walking through the woods and not looking at anything.
I mean, the one that he walked right past on the rock when they were kind of going through, like, how in the world did you not see that? The color's not even the same. It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
I want to
It,
play hide and seek with that guy.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, and I thought it was kind of cold of Sierra bought the peanut butter and she could pick two people to eat it with her and she didn't pick Andy. I'm like, come on, Sierra. Like, do better than that. But hey, justice was served. She went home.
yep.
So
Yeah. And they clearly were not aligned.
no.
So.
I mean, they even at one point Sam was talking to somebody else and was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of forget about Andy," and like she even said at one point like he's just a vote in our pocket and tagging along, and whenever we need to get rid of him, we can, and just they clearly didn't value that relationship a ton.
I personally I loved that one of them went home because I was
Mhm.
like, I'm a little bit over you guys, your duo, the way that you're playing the game. Like, don't really seem to be respecting people or like kind of thinking you're above certain people. And
Mhm.
that's just not a winner's game and not really something that I want to like endorse. So I loved that that went down tonight.
For sure. And I like the evolution that Andy is trying to make happen, but man, he's not helping his case very well. No, he is really trying to be the player and the person that he wants to be, and it's working in some aspects. But then you see him in the challenge, it's like, oh, bud.
I was honestly pretty impressed
He held
in
his own.
in the
Oh,
immunity
that's true.
challenge.
That's true.
Oh,
Because he had like looking for the bamboo things. It's like, what are you doing? And then
yeah.
in that challenge, I'm like, dang, he almost pulled it out.
Yeah. I root for Andy. I think he's a good player. I think that his play style might not resonate very well with some jury members, especially the ones that he turned on. But
Hmm.
uh I don't
But
know. Every
uh,
jury is different, obviously. Like they might just take it in stride and be like, dang, we kind of underestimated Andy. We respect you for
Or-
that. Or they could be like, screw you, man. We kept you here and we didn't need to. So, but that's the beauty of Survivor is it's in the player's control.
yep.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see how the jury reacts to his facial expressions because he was, I mean, when they blindsided Annika,
Mm-hmm.
he was like actually happy about that and was like that was the most fun that I've had, out here. If he says something like that again, especially if he's involved with a couple blindsides, I don't know that the jury is going to take too kindly to that. So it'll be interesting to see if he does that, if they, take it the wrong way or not. I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I think now that we have jury members, I think you're going to have to kind of pick your words wisely when you're at tribal council. Like you can't just sit there and like he's not going to be able to gloat next tribal about Sierra because that's just like I mean, if you want to just throw
Lose
that
a
vote
vote.
away,
Yeah.
lose that vote, likely lose Sam's vote, maybe Rachel's vote too. Like you've that's your entire tribe that you started with that you've kind of alienated by that behavior. And then you got to work to get Tuku and Labo votes now because you've lost those. So yeah, he's got to kind of clean that up a little bit. I love the game he's playing, but I think he does need to kind of hone in his reactions, emotions, and kind of way he's going about navigating some of that.
Yeah. Let's see. Whose game do you think ended up in a worse spot this week? Like whose stock went down?
I honestly think the number one that comes to my mind there is Sam. I think losing his number one in Sierra and just the target that was on his back. Obviously, he didn't go home and they just chose to keep him. But losing your number one is obviously never a good thing and can turn your game upside down. Hopefully, in his case, he can use that to fuel his fire and kind of go about the game differently and separate from that, and maybe that will help him. But at this moment, until we see that, I think his stock dropped the most there.
Mine's gonna be kind of weird but it's Kyle. And the reason for that is before the immunity challenges that he won yet again, 3 straight, they were kind of talking about we need to get Kyle out next time. It was Sierra and I don't remember who else talking about we need to get Kyle out. He keeps winning challenges. Next time we get him, next time he loses, we'll get him out. And obviously he won again. So I think should he lose next immunity, and odds are he will, that he might be on the chopping block.
Yeah. And I literally asked that last week if you guys thought that that was going to potentially hurt him. And
Last week I didn't think that. Now I'm like, oh, they're looking at that.
yeah, it's and I was with you. I wasn't sure that they would or not, but I, the kind of, at least historically, the last couple seasons, that hasn't seemed to be like the most important factor. But man, they sure said that, and then right after they said that, he ended up winning again. So I was like, oh man, that's not a good spot.
Yeah, and it almost seemed like he was even like, oh no, people are going to start looking at me and starting to worry about me if I don't continue to win. So I feel like he's pretty aware of that. I'll be curious. Obviously he's going to continue to try and win the immunity, but I'll be curious to see what happens whenever if and when he doesn't.
Did you have somebody that stuck out to you, Blake, is kind of stock down this week?
Sam, Sam was my big one. There were a lot of players that were pretty stagnant for me, and only a couple that I think really went up, but Sam was really the only one, and obviously Kyle, like we talked about, but those were really the only two, surprisingly.
Yeah. I like nobody necessarily had any like just big blunders, but it was just like conversations that other people were having about other players. Like I said, 6 people's names came up tonight out of the 11.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, like Kyle's got a bigger target on his back. Rachel's got a bigger target on her back. Obviously Sam and Sierra. And honestly, I don't think Sierra getting voted out necessarily means that Sam's getting voted out next week.
No, that's almost a good thing for Sam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I was saying, and I think his stock dropped, but depending on how he reacts and moves forward could change that. And I agree, I don't think just because she got voted out, because I think what they were trying to do was separate the two.
Right.
So
yeah, it's like there's just little things about each person left that, like Teeny this week, kind of forgettable. Like she was involved, had lots of conversations, but that's about it. Kind of forgettable this week. Rachel, stock went up, but her target went up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, we've already talked about. We like his game. We'll see. Sue, kind of forgettable other than her winning. Like that was kind of a cool moment for her, and what a cool challenge for her to win it on. Like that was cool. Genevieve, same thing. Kind of just definitely involved. You can tell how sharp she is, but I don't know how much I don't know.
I mean, I think she played a role. I think you can make an argument that she was pivotal in this vote, because towards the beginning she was like, we got to go after Gata, and Caroline was like, yes. And
yeah, that's true. I forgot about that, because her and Caroline were the two that I actually wrote down, and like those two getting together might be incredibly sharp.
And I know that I said, like, I genuinely don't know who's going to win, but I think you might have been right on your pick, Blake, with Caroline. Because there's nothing bad that I can find in her game. She has a plan, but she's super positive and open to like letting other people shine and not necessarily need the credit. Like Genevieve, like Genevieve saying like we got to go after Gata, Caroline was like, "Oh, I was gonna do that, but that's awesome." Like she could have easily been like, "Well, crap, now I got to get Genevieve out because I need that to be my move."
Yeah.
So I think just from gameplay and kind of under the radar, low key, and then jury management and just being a likable person, seemingly, she's good.
Yeah. See, and I feel the same way about Genevieve. She's just a little more out in the open about it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Caroline is one of the more strategic and smart players that we've seen and more observant player than we've seen in years past. And it's pretty impressive the way she's able to break things down, listen to people, and like you said, Brandon, it really is hard to find a downside to her gameplay currently.
Yeah. And like I'm trying to think, and maybe you guys have a comparison for her, but I'm trying to I'm trying to think of another Survivor player that her game reminds me of because it's very unique. She's
Mhm.
very like she has control of the game. She has a solid alliance, but like and I would argue that she's kind of pulling strings and kind of moving things like in charge, but nobody knows it. And you usually don't see somebody that it seems like they're in charge and doesn't have anybody looking at them. So maybe she's just read like I'm gonna align with Sue because Sue's not gonna go against me, and I'm gonna align with Gabe and Kyle and so on and Tiana even. It's
Yeah.
amazing that she's gone this far, and in my opinion, like again, has a good grasp on her game, and nobody's even looked in her direction.
I would love to see her, Genevieve, and Saul all team up.
I think that could be crazy.
Because Saul's the other one that, like, totally different gameplay than Genevieve and um, Caroline. Sorry, just blanked on her name. But kind of playing really, really smart as well, just in a completely different way. And I feel like I'm more and more impressed with him every single week. Like he's not going down at all for me.
Yeah, I'm still a big fan of Saul.
Yeah, I like Saul again because he's kind of a free agent, and he's kind of planting seeds and making moves and getting alliances or relationships that he needs, like getting the advantage to Rachel. And then I won't say he saved Rachel tonight, but he was like, "Whoa, I don't want to do that because I didn't do all that work to help her just to turn around and vote her out." So
Yeah.
just he's making low key smart moves, and that's just multiple low key smart players in the game. And I'll be curious if they sniff each other out.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's see here. What did we not talk about yet?
Honestly,
I feel like we've really
I
hit on a
had
lot of the main things.
we hit my list. I was passionate about this episode. I loved it.
I mean, I think the episode had a lot in it, and not necessarily. Obviously, a lot of strategic and gameplay, and people talking to each other. The auction, like I feel like we hit a lot of that, and just I don't know. It was a great episode, and I'm not sure if there's anything else I had on my list at least.
Yeah.
So I actually did have something else, and that kind of reminded me of it. Brandon, you mentioned last week that um, you didn't love last week. I forget exactly how you worded it, but it just left you a little frustrated with how the game has changed. And that was a common thing that I saw online after last week's episode. So I just want to hear you kind of talk about going from that almost like disappointment from last week to this week saying that you absolutely loved it. Because to me, that's part of the awesome thing about Survivor is like, ooh, I hated that episode. And then the
So
next one, and it's the greatest thing ever. So I
Sure.
just wanted to hear you talk about that.
yeah, I think New Era Survivor can be its own worst enemy at times, and in most aspects of life, I'm a big believer in less is more. And I think Survivor does too much sometimes. And when I say Survivor, I mean production, kind of not necessarily interfering with the game, but not letting organic gameplay happen. Where last week, I wasn't like a big supporter of Tiana because I didn't really know her game. But I thought the way that Tiana got voted out was just unfair because number one, they did the tribe split and half the tribe was safe and 5 people were vulnerable, right? I don't like that. Like either be merged or don't be merged. Stop doing that. And then the advantage like ended up kind of saving the episode where Rachel walked out with their safety without power. But like it left Tiana screwed. Like Tiana wasn't going home. So it kind of left like I wish that the players just had control of the game. Like if somebody's going to play an idol and Tiana gets out that way, cool. But the fact that production was like, let's do this, and like the odds that it was all Tuku and Rachel ended up being safe. It just didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
That was my issue with last week. But then jumping ahead to this week, you have everybody vulnerable and everybody being able to play. I even mentioned last week, like Andy and Genevieve were kind of teaming up and talking about things, right? And they ended up being on the team last week that won immunity. So kind of killed the entire momentum and excitement of that. And it didn't really come up again this week. So I want the players to have control of the game. And I don't want production to have so much influence on what happens. I just want it to be like dialed back, not like Survivor Borneo, but like let the players play the game and let them dictate what happens. That's where I'm at. And that was my frustration last week. And I know a lot of people shared that same thing. And I hope that Survivor sees that and like learns from that. Nobody likes how you handle the merge, the first 3 votes in the new era. Maybe change it. But this episode was fantastic to kind of get back on a positive note of the players are playing. That's what I led the show off with, is the players are playing. Again, 6 names came up. You don't usually see more than 2 names come up. We had 6 names to go through. And it was fantastic because you have so many people that aren't just sitting back and letting things happen. Like that happened in Survivor 46 where people were like, I'm just gonna kind of go with the flow. Survivor 45, like you had an entire tribe just destroy everybody because the other 2 tribes couldn't figure out that they were getting played and come together and make a move on the other tribe. So everybody's playing, and let the players play. That's it.
Well said. Well said.
There's so much passion. More passion.
Thank you.
No, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I'm with you. Everybody's playing, and like you said, at least 6 names came up, and then for everybody to end up like knowing what was happening, because I'm not convinced that them splitting the vote wasn't on purpose tonight.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and it's just it's impressive that many names can come up and yet everybody can still vote the same way to get what they want done. Like, it's just, I don't know.
The one thing I
Level
didn't sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The one thing with the tribal and splitting the vote, I didn't even think about Sam obviously not having his vote and Sierra having her vote, and so she was actually able to vote in the revote, and Sam wasn't still. And typically they just, like Jeff said, they cancel out there. But I don't know if or the last time that had happened.
That's true.
I don't know if it ever has.
Yeah.
Well,
But
and if you so that's what made me think that they split the vote on purpose. And tell me if you guys don't think so, but because I think Sierra voted Gabe. And so it was still tied even though Sierra didn't vote. So if everybody's vote stayed the same, then Sam would have gone home because Sierra had her vote, and so that would have made it not tied.
mm-hmm.
But everybody switched their vote to Sierra, so it didn't matter what she did, which tells me that that's what they were planning to do the whole time. Hey, we're splitting votes.
Yeah, I actually thought Sam was going home when they tied. I'm like, welp.
Yep.
Then they flipped it on Sierra.
Because, and I could be wrong here, but earlier in the episode, didn't somebody say that they might have an idol, and so that's why I'm assuming that's why they split the votes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to split the votes. Like we've seen, dogpiling votes just doesn't work. Like Caleb shot in the dark, season 45, for example. Like split the votes every time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, well, last thing for me is Survivor of the Week. And I know we've kind of thrown a lot of names out there, but I think unless it's just something you've got to say, let's just say our Survivor of the Week and not explain why.
Okay.
Interesting.
You tired of listening to me talk?
I mean, we can definitely say why, but I feel like at this point we're all going to know why.
My word count too high.
I'm just not, I can't quite see your feet if you're still on that soapbox.
I'll go first. Mine's Rachel. Next.
I was just going to ask, okay, why? Oh, okay. Maybe I don't like this idea.
I can explain it. I think we should explain it. I don't know what are you thinking?
Awful idea.
So I did mention earlier in the episode why I think Rachel. So your thought process is all right. But just the fact that, like, I think she, first off, the way that she got the hidden immunity idol was amazing and super awesome with 10 people sitting there. But playing her shot in the dark instead of her idol, and playing her shot in the dark to kind of gauge the temperature of the rest of the tribe mates, genius. Because I think a lot of people, you know, if they felt the heat, would have just played their idol there, right? And she, again, kind of revolutionized how you could navigate using a shot in the dark moving forward. So that's why I picked Rachel.
I am right there with you. She was up there on my list and would be my kind of Survivor of the Week. Just trying to think outside of the box. I think Andy could be another one up there. Didn't improve his game a ton, but I think with going after Sierra and Sam and doing some of that and separating himself from that, continuing to evolve his game up there as well. So my initial vote was going to be Rachel, but kind of a runner-up for me that I was on the fence on was Andy as well.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see where you're coming from, Logan. I mean, there's everybody talks about if you're going to take a shot, like you can't miss.
Mhm.
Wasn't that Sandra's saying?
I believe so.
Like if you take a shot at the queen, you better not miss or something like that. But, it, you know, Andy picked his shot and he didn't miss. So I don't know. I think that's is going to bode well for him. But I'm with you. I have to pick Rachel
Mhm.
like, to pull off kind of a revolutionary move potentially. It could drastically change how the game is played in the future. This many seasons in, it's gotta be her.
Yeah.
I like it.
She's gonna be a dangerous one.
Yeah, especially if she can stick around another couple weeks. I think next week might be still be pretty dangerous for her, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless she misreads her idol or misreads needing to play her idol, I think she's got at least one more week in her.
yeah.
And it very well could happen because I mean, how many votes this season have been total blindsides? So
All of them? Like most
true.
of them.
Yeah. So it very well could end up being that she gets blindsided and doesn't play it. But it's I was kind of thinking about that of how many blindsides there have been this season, and it's pretty insane to me. But
Yeah,
I
I
think
think her downfall is going to be if she tells people about her idol.
I think the only person I could see her telling is Saul.
Yeah. Just whether or not Saul will keep it to himself, because that could potentially ruin things and they'll spin it in a way that she won't see it coming.
Hmm.
But she's clearly not afraid to play items. I mean,
Yeah.
playing your shot in the dark is still like, I don't know, a little bit of a target on your back. It's like, hey, I'm willing to do whatever I have to do.
Oh,
But
she'd win the bonus star in Mario Party for items played.
But that's going to bode well for her if she gets an uneasy feeling at all. Not being afraid to play your idol is not a bad thing at all.
And in that sense, if she can keep her idol a complete secret and nobody knows about it, then as soon as they go to vote for her because, oh, hey, she doesn't have her shot in the dark, she's just a sitting duck at this point. Here's our opportunity. She could almost dictate who's going home or really, really change some things.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to see.
All right. Well, you guys have anything else? Oh, Brandon, did we get any mail?
We didn't get any mail. That's okay because we're gonna keep pushing this until we get mail. I know it's gonna take a little bit of work to get people to do this, so I'm just gonna keep saying it. Shoot us any questions, ideas, feedback at the mergefeastpodcast@gmail.com. We'll read your question on the show, give you a shout out, answer your question, and yeah, just keep them, or I guess start throwing them in. I would say keep them coming, but we only had one. But keep them coming.
All right. Well, all of our socials will be in the show notes below, along with the email. And so make sure you give us a follow, like, and yeah, shoot us an email. I think that's all I've got. Go ahead and say goodbye, Logan.
Goodbye, Logan.